All right, what's going on, everyone? Episode 24 of the podcast. I know we're doing it kind of sporadically. Sometimes they're not coming consistently enough, but this is an extremely valuable episode. I know it's going to be without us even doing the content because I've got a very special guest with me here, Gregory Candeur. Isn't so present online, probably will be in the future, I imagine, and somebody that actually managed me when I was a setter back last year in the well-known health offer Pompa Program. Just for context on Greg specifically, so he's worked with some major brands. You guys may have seen Nick Elia from my previous episodes, worked directly with Nick under, I think it was Traffic and Funnels and Sales Mentor, or was it one of the others, just for clarification?
Yeah, I was on the sales mentor side, and he was over at Traffic and Funnels. Yep.
Yeah, sales mentor side, and Greg absolutely smashed it there. Has managed multiple teams, been helping out SDRs himself individually. Hit some crazy numbers, 73% set to close rate on occasion as well, which is unbelievably good. Something that you don't really hear about in the industry. As a closer, hit 600K on a 3K offer within a very short period of time. And has done multi-millions as a closer, setter manager. We're talking in the tens of millions, right? So as far as being qualified to share advice, like Greg is far like beyond what we're seeing in the space at the moment. So extremely excited to have him on, and yeah, just getting into more of the juice. So I guess yeah, the big thing would be coming back to like where it all started, like why it even happened, like what made you go down the route of this like high ticket world.
Oh man, I was day trading full time, forex specifically, and I was living in Hawaii. The hours were brutal because of the time differences with Hawaii. It's probably one of the worst places to trade from. So I was working a lot of like the Japanese market, the European market, and the U.S. market, and I was like, this, I was risking big capital to make big gains. So nothing's more stressful than when you go in on a deal or you throw in a bid, and it's like you're up $6,000, and then 10 seconds later you're down negative 12,000, and you're like oof, and then it bottoms out or whatever. So super high stress. You can win, but it's essentially turns into gambling at that point. The Fed Reserve like drops some crazy news, and it just tanks your whole deal, and you're like, oh crap. So I was like, there's got to be a better approach, and I was following Taylor at the time, Taylor Welch, which I'm sure many people know his name. And he was starting up the whole sales mentor side of things. So he was already doing traffic and funnels. Um, and I just started following him on Instagram. And one thing led to another. I maxed out my credit card to come into his program at the time. And I was like, cool, I gotta pay rent because I was stepping away from doing the investing, and I didn't want to pull from my investment. So I was like, I gotta pay rent. I don't know how I'm gonna do that this end of the month. I maxed out my credit cards. Let's make it happen. So then I got a job offer from one of their guys in Facebook Messenger. And I was like, okay, cool. I took the job, worked remotely for them, but I was living in a studio apartment with my girlfriend at the time. And so she worked nights, or yeah, so she worked nights. So our schedules didn't line up. I didn't want to wake her when she was sleeping. I was getting up with the time difference. I was up at 3 a.m. to do setting. So I would go work in the car at 3 a.m. on my phone hotspot on a laptop, and just started cranking that first month. Hit the top of the leaderboard, just got like 5 closes in my first couple days. And everyone was like, who the heck is this guy? And it was always dark. So the joke was like, Greg lives in a cave. Um,
Right.
so I was just working in the car on hotspot, slamming deals, and got to the top of the leaderboard first month, beat my own record the second month, beat my own record the third month. And the whole track record back then was basically like setters was a way you would segue to closing. And my goal was to get to closing, but their track record was like basically a year of dedicated as a setter to go into closing. And like, there's no way in hell I'm staying here for a year as a setter. I'm going to move into a closer role. And they're like, well, we want you in the office for that to ever be a chance and everything. I was like, yeah, but if I move there, you need to give me the role ASAP. They're like, no, it's a year. So I had this whole conversation with Peyton at the time, and Josh Johnson, and I was like, no, let me talk to the boss, Peyton, and they're like, all right. So I basically negotiated and finagled. I was like, you guys want me here long term, you're gonna have to put me as a closer now, or else I'll take my skill set and go somewhere else. And I was generating several hundred thousand a month for them. So I was like, you're gonna lose your top setter. So they gave me a shot. I moved from Hawaii all the way to Tennessee, and worked in their office there for several months, became a closer, and yeah, and then went on to a bunch of other teams. So that was kind of the start of things.
Jeez, okay. Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people don't really have that kind of a start, I guess, when it comes to setting. But like, the main thing is how you ramped up so quickly from, I guess, never having any form of sales experience before, right? Um, or
Yeah, I mean, so I'd managed some pretty big teams. I'd done a lot of sales in different aspects. It wasn't in high
okay,
ticket sales.
that's fine.
But ultimately what it came down to is I think I have a very high interest in psychology and just understanding like the what makes humans tick. So I always like to get to the base of that. And I think that really helped develop my skill set specifically in the online space because it's not as visual, right? We were on phones. It's not Zoom like what a lot of people are switching to now. It was what you can get out of a conversation. I just really love pushing the envelope on that.
For sure. And like when it comes to psychology, there's like so many facets when it comes to appointment setting. People here would want to know your mindset on all of that, right? But as far as like the psychology elements of setting, like what do you think are some of the core principles that you've learned from psychology that helped you to be a top performer? Like some top three, top four, like just some main ones that you focus on.
I think treating every sale like a conversation, and I know that gets thrown around a lot, and I think it's become very heavily diluted. Is just see them as a human. It's like, well, yeah, no crap. You should always see everyone as a human being. But understanding literally what I said is what makes that person tick. So ultimately, to get from a potential prospect to an actual buyer on whatever you're selling, it needs to hit a couple of different criteria. I need to understand what led them to this call, why now, and then what is it that's going to actually move the needle forward for them to execute. If I can figure that out, everything else just falls into place. So
Yeah.
it really comes down to just a couple elements.
Got it. Yeah. So, I mean, it's quite simple how you break down the call. Like a lot of people would say, like, I don't, we know some popular trainers out there that would be like, it's the overarching goal, situation, problem, like solution, urgency, qualifier, set. Like, there's so many facets that go into it, but mainly boiling it down to even three or four things that you need to know, and then you're absolutely assured
Yep.
of getting the result. And that's what I mean. You basically created that kind of predictability with your set to close rate. So, I'm assuming that didn't happen overnight. That was a process to get to that point. So like, what do you think helped you? Because there's obviously skill set that helps, but what helped you ultimately to get to that like 60-70% set to close?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, what it always came down to is I don't think I need to rewrite the whole book. So I'm going to take what I see from the top performers on any offer I go into. Whenever I go into something new, I just shut up and observe. And when I do that, I look at all of the closed won deals, and then also on those guys, I'm looking at where they lost their deals because ultimately, like I know with their avatar, they're successful for XYZ reasons, but which ones are they missing out on? Because it's always 9 times out of 10 the ones they're missing out on are going to outweigh the ones they're winning on because people look at their conversion rate. Let's say you close at 25%. There's 75% of the leads that you're losing out on. Why? And sales people are notorious for blaming marketing every single time. But it's like, okay, cool. Aside from marketing, let's assume it's a well-oiled machine on every other front. And the numbers will dictate that. So let's assume all that falls into place. It's like, what am I missing out on those 75%? Because every closer is going to have a different approach. And what makes someone able to execute at a higher level is that they're able to have a well-rounded approach to meet each and every avatar. And ultimately just boils down to those three or four core different things that I said, like what gets them to become an actual successful buyer. So yeah.
Right. And that's the thing, like as well, like when you look for prospects as well, having the conversations, because obviously you're looking at the close loss, close one. What are you looking for that gives you, I guess, the ultimate green flags in that, right, this person's a good person for me to set? Green flags and red flags. Like what are some of those that you really focus on?
Well, so and this kind of boggles my mind, but the number of people that, especially, I think that the whole process starts from when I'm interviewing for a position, and I cover a lot of this in my trainings as well. As like it's from head to toe. So I go through the funnel myself multiple times. I watch the VSLs, I check out all the form, the script, everything that they have, and then from there, I just see like, okay, does this process have like a clearly defined expectation or roadmap to get me to the end result, and like what's the execution on the back end as far as through with client success journey, etc. If I have all that and I understand this is a good product that I'm selling, I won't sell something I don't believe in. And I won't sell something I don't believe is successful for more people than it's not. So that's just my code of ethics. Past that though, like as far as actually on the calls, what I'm looking for is do they fit, like what is the mold that they have to fit? Like if I'm selling a health offer, for example, it's like, cool, primarily your people are going to be sick candidates, it's safe to say, but you're also going to have the people that are doing preventative. So I want to fit them into a couple of different camps, and then I want to see like what holds them from one camp to the next. So
Very interesting. So I see you're just kind of putting things more into like a binary form just to help you to know basically who to spend your time with, like, and then you can filtrate like how you then approach them as well, which is
yeah,
pretty.
because everything at the end of the day is binary, right? So I have a very analytical mind in that sense. Like data doesn't lie, my emotions will. I have a breakup with a girl, or my family's going through something or whatever. All of that is going to affect my close rate, etc. But if I know where it's stemming from, then I can let the numbers, like I can gauge, okay, this is what happened at this time. This is why my numbers dipped, or this is why my numbers are going higher. What did I change in my process? And I can just become very, very micro on that.
Got it. Yeah, 100%. And that's a big thing for setters as well. I think oftentimes, and now getting into the point where I'm managing setters, what I notice a lot of is like, oh, leads are really bad at the moment. Like, can we fix that? And oftentimes it's never a data-driven response to like, oh, I've tracked this amount of meaningful conversations. This is what I'm seeing specifically. These are the factors of where the prospects are at. It's always leads are broke, right? It's never anything objective. So yeah, absolutely. Objectivity, looking into the numbers, that's key. I think that's the ultimate thing that separates a good from a great setter. Absolutely. I've had to learn that, especially myself, having worked under Greg, it was a massive amount of data-driven feedback. So awesome, sounds good. And I think, obviously getting into the more management director side of things as well, what helps you to make that transition? I guess a lot of setters here might want that same trajectory themselves.
I think the basis for it was data. I was always data driven, even in my own process. Like no one's going to be criticized, or no one's going to critique themselves more than me. And for me, it was with my numbers as far as from setting to closer. I knew what I needed to do, and then as a closer, like I knew what my threshold was as far as like how much volume I could take, what my point of negative return was for volume that I take. So like knowing all those things, then it's just an amplified level of all of that as a baseline for a closer, and then from a closer to a director or manager, because all you're doing as a manager is just multiplying the output that you do as an individual if you're doing it right. So your team obviously is going to do it like you're going to have different levels. You're going to have new members that are just starting out. You're going to have to train them up. You need to know like what ramp up time is. And then if you have experienced ones, you need to know like, okay, cool. How do I take them to that next level? How do I get like a 3 or 4% lift for them? So all that takes time. I think affording yourself the time to develop that is the biggest thing. Most people just have shiny object syndrome, and they'll stick only through the good times. But when the times get rough, that's actually where you do a lot of your learning. I want to know like, okay, why are the times rough? Is it a me thing? Is it a company thing? And then I analyze the data to reflect exactly like what my next step is. You're going to learn so much more that way from being able to stick through the thick and thin than just like going for the good times.
I got it. And that's another thing for setters as well. Like there might be a few watching this that have been part of an offer where bad times have been happening, and it's figuring out, well, when's that quitting point? So from your perspective, what would you say is that like some main things that help right, this is probably not the offer?
And there again, it always comes back down to data. And there's different data points I'm tracking throughout for this. Like my healthy baseline is I know I need an X amount. If I can't hit this, then I need to analyze first. Like let's say I average, it's whatever. Let's say I'm averaging 200K a month, right? I know I need to be bringing home 20K, 10% commission, whatever it is. If my level drops to 10,000 take home, I'm like, okay, why? Well, maybe I took 2 weeks off. Okay, so I only had 50% of the volume at bats. So that's a me thing. Now, if it's like, hey, I actually did more volume and I got less results, my close rate dropped. Like, okay, what else fell? What broke? Was it show rate? Okay, well, if the show rate broke, is that something that I could have done different? Like, what broke? Is it a marketing side? Is it a me thing? I'm never just going to defer it to someone else and say, oh, it's their fault, or oh, this. And I think most people, the key thing here is really to just be truthful with yourself, take the emotion out of the game, and just look at the data.
Yeah, 100%. That's it. I think everything's just circling back data, right? Which is it's everything at the end of the day in this type of role. Because it's kind of at the core of building a business, right? When you're doing something like appointment setting. So super valuable. And I suppose on the side of more of the qualitative stuff, especially like culture, right? Building a culture, what you did with myself and being in the team at Pompa Program, you did a great job of creating that collaborative, that growth culture. And we were genuinely having fun on the meetings, just enjoying the time there. Obviously, I left for the reasons of just simply not finding the offer suitable to what I wanted to work on in the future. But the time I had there, the culture was excellent. So, like, what would you say were some of the facets that have helped you to just create a good culture within the team?
Yeah, I mean, I've been part of it's a great question. I think culture is important. I think it stems first from the individual fitting into that. So that comes down to management hiring the right people or the people that can be molded into the right people. So it's important to maintain a healthy culture. I've been part of some $600 million companies, been part of some small startups, and even with giant companies, like the overall or the overarching culture could be off. But if you have your own dedicated team, the culture is great there, you're going to attract the right people just for that team, and that can still be healthy. So it really does come down. So if you're mid-tier management or, looking to get into executive, like a lot of it just comes down to you first, and how you instill that culture is first from yourself. So I will never ask something of my team, like when I push them hard or if I'm hard on them, they know that I'm 2 times harder on myself, or at least I hope they do. And if they're coming out with a bad attitude and stuff, like I'm going to challenge it, but I'm also going to have the data again to back what I'm saying. So it's, Taylor, your numbers are under. Why are they under? Let's break it down. Well, it's marketing and stuff. Okay, cool. Let's break it down. What do you mean it's marketing? Well, you only took half the volume and you're saying it's marketing's fault, right? Like, so I'm going to break it down with data, and I'm going to give everyone the chance and the opportunity to course correct if they're wrong. But I mean, from the front end, you can very easily filter out the people that are just a really bad fit. They shouldn't be on your team in the first place. But give every opportunity for someone to course correct if you've given them that chance. And then if you have, and they're still not, that's when you have to know when to cut corners, or sorry, cut ties.
Cut ties, yeah, 100%. Love it. And of course, touching on like I know you're working on some things in the background as well for setters, for salespeople overall. Can we get like a sneak peek into what that might be? This will upload in maybe a couple of weeks, so I think it'll be out by then. But yeah.
Yeah, I've had a passion project of, I do a lot of coaching, mentoring for setters, closers, and they've gotten some really, really great results. And time and time again, they're like, oh, can I just do more with you? Or do you have a course or something? And I've always steered away from it because I didn't believe, even though I bought into it and I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on coaching and, training and everything. I don't believe that there should be such an upfront cost to getting into this, because a lot of people, they have careers or they have families or they're trying to transition. It's tough to swallow the bullet of 10K, 15K. So I've got a subscription model that's going to be rolling out. That's going to be very digestible for people as far as for income reasons and everything. But I want to put everything I've learned in the last, I don't even know how many years now of sales, from setting to closers to management to director roles, and show how to do roadmaps to get to those levels. So that's something I've been working on for years. I've got all of my data back from years of doing this myself, and I'm going to be sharing that with everyone, showing the good, the bad, the ugly, from the psychology of it, from the mental side to the physical side. Just every element for so many different industries that I've worked in. And I really want to help people to level up, because a lot of these programs out there that I know, there are some good ones, but a lot of them I think are just money grabs, and they regurgitate a lot of the same content over and over again, which at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. But it doesn't really help move the needle forward in developing into a successful career where you can make $60, $70, $80,000 a month for the top dogs. And even for those that are, on the beginning, 10, 15, 20K, that's life-changing.
Yeah, 100%. Love it, man. And as far as like being able to come to you for like any questions or support, would Facebook be the best place to reach you, or would there be another?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm not huge on social media. My network is very tight, but you can definitely reach me on Facebook. Taylor can drop my name. There's only one Gregory Candeur on there, so shoot me a message. I'm pretty good to respond, and happy to help see where I can plug in to help people develop. So.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'll definitely drop the link to Greg's profile. And also, I mean, if everything's out by the time where we've uploaded this, then of course I'll drop the link to Gregory's mentorship. I've worked with Greg and know exactly what he's like, what he can teach. And it's, it was an absolute honor to learn under him. There's so many different great people out there, but Greg's one of the best that I've learned from a setting context, especially. So should be a really valuable program. But that's it, guys. If you enjoyed it, obviously, do the obvious, like, comment, share, all of that good stuff. We're very, very close to 1,000 subscribers, so let's just keep sharing it. I think a lot of people need to hear the realities of appointment setting, right? It's not just the generic shit that you hear online, that you see, where it's all just repackaged stuff. So cool. I hope you guys enjoyed, and on to the next episode, I guess.